It's 1938, October 31st, and the radio drama show Mercury Theater on Air begins an adaptation of The War of Worlds. Orson Welles commands the story, his voice akin to that of a news reporter covering breaking news. The cast replace European names with American ones and speak as if the invasion is happening in real time. They also forget to mention that the story is fiction, periodically, as they promised. Suddenly, listeners are whipped into a fear frenzy. The story sounds so convincing, people stand outside with shotguns, ready to blow aliens into ribbons should they trespass property lines. But how did people fall victim to such a seemingly obvious fake story? The answer lies in the nature of misinformation. By preying upon the reliability of radio news and the actor's performance, they fell victim to the tall tale. As misinformation continues to evolve and become extensive, it becomes more difficult to know the truth. Misinformation's reign isn't confined to digital spaces, however. Its consequences are widespread and infiltrate the real world. As a digital citizen, it's critical to understand misinformation and protect ourselves from its negative effects by arming ourselves with the tools to dismantle its dishonesty. We can never take for granted what we read, see, or hear from media sources of any kind. This caution applies to every scrap of news that comes our way, whether from traditional news organizations or any other source. The only rational approach, then, is skepticism, Gilmore says in his book, Becoming an Active User. Before retweeting an article, open it and ask yourself if it sounds true. If the answer is yes, don't stop there. Be aware of how algorithm works. Social sites create echo chambers and prey on your confirmation bias, which is your increased favoring of information you believe to be accurate. By addressing your internal biases and asking yourself if the information you're consuming is wrong, even if it does align with your beliefs, you're already combating most of information's strengths. Ignorance, and the hope that you won't actually Google if Myers selling kittens with every 10th purchase of cat litter. There are a few things to look out for when considering if an image is real or AI generated. The first is distortions. AI struggles to keep things unblended, so pictures often look smudged or features are erased. Look for inconsistencies, if that's missing buttons, warped text, extra fingers, yada yada. Especially pay attention to small details, since often during generations they become messed up. A second tip is to look for evidence of AI generation outside of the picture. Often artists will claim the piece and tell you what software they used to generate it. In some cases, other people in the comment section can also help you. In the photo above, the colored blocks in the corner also watermark the image, letting you know it's AI. Apply common sense too. If something looks too good to be true, it most likely is. A dragon found in the middle of a lake probably isn't real. Sorry. Check for the source of an image. If you can't find a clear first and last name, then the validity of the image is iffy at best. Good photos come from clear sources with evidence to back up the image. Has your uncle ever shared an article to social media about tigers escaping houses in Texas and preying on ordinary citizens? Okay, maybe just me. But instead of trusting it immediately and reposting it to warn those poor Texans, I checked the source. Turns out it was a big hoax. No tigers roam the streets, just disinformation. Sources from experts or ground coverage are the most reliable. Large news outlets will often send reporters to cover stories, so look into people at the source. Don't always trust verified sources too. Some sites use monetary means for verification, like X. Be cautious of sources that are difficult to trace back to the original, like screenshots. If you can't find the root of information, then how can you verify its legitimacy? Even if you do find the original source, question the author. If an article is created by a new account with a strange pattern of behavior, like only liking a few posts, that's definitely suspicious, and the source should be investigated further. Make sure to look outside of a single article before sharing it. Because scientific work can be based on probability, any one study can seem misleading, so go seek more information from different studies. This also goes for opinion-based reporting. It's easy to quote someone to make their words appear a specific way. Try to find out the context of any one statement shared. No two political party stories play out the same way, but they must come from similar information based in reality. In his book, Love Your Enemies, Arthur C. Brooks comments on how important it is to escape your own perspective. Quote, while it's comforting to hear you right all the time, it skews our perspectives dangerously. First, by keeping our own ideas safe from any challenge, and second, by allowing our perceptions of our political opponents to be shaped by caricatures of people we disagree with, not the people themselves. End quote. By reading the opposing side, you get a new perspective on what really happened and challenge your biases. A win-win. Use a neutral source checker. There's no shame in not knowing, but there is shame in spreading misinformation. Some sites like Instagram and X have built-in fact-checking that can highlight mistruths to the user, but often these come from community engagement, so we can't always rely on these tools, especially with newer content. Instead, we can turn to sites like Snopes or PolyFact as tools for confirmation. Look up a sensational article, person, or image and investigate. These websites act as neutral source checkers and ensure facts before feelings. That way you can avoid the shame of misposting disinformation and the unruly consequences it releases on social sites. Remember that this list isn't exhaustive, but hopefully they have helped you, or at least reminded you, of the different strategies used to combat disinformation. You've seen the numerous pitfalls that beset the internet. In our digital age, the issue of misleading, dishonest, or outright incorrect information will continue to plague us, but as online users we grow stronger by practicing these skills and curating ourselves to stop the spread of misinformation and pursue the truth.